Good afternoon. Yes, it's me. I've returned. Just like a bad house guest. All right. We're going to do a real brief... Hold on. I apologize to all my Caribbean listeners, man. Because, it's a man I deal with brief. We're going to do a short episode 3 of our tech tips. All right. So we've only done 2 so far, so we on a roll, man. This is the 3rd one. So this will be tech tip episode 3 or tree, depending on where you were raised and your background, your cultural heritage, all that good stuff. All right, and live in the studio today, we got a special guest, man. We got a Wasi Amplifier hanging out with us today. Say hello and introduce yourself to the family. Hi, my name is Wasi W15K, and I'm a bad mofo. You don't know? All right, thank you for that introduction. All right, so enough of the foolishness. Let's get on to some quick technical stuff, right? I get hit up a lot of times by a lot of people that ask me why an amplifier sounds different, why an amplifier plays differently. We're not going to go into anything real deep and technical, but we're going to discuss 2 things that are real critical to an amplifier, right? The amplifier, inside the circuit of an amplifier, it consists of, quite a few discrete components. I'm going to list the 2 main or the most important first. That's the transistors. And the second one is capacitors. I'm trying to look through the phone and write at the same time, and sometimes I can't chew gum and walk at the same time, so you got to excuse me. All right, you got transistors and capacitors, right? There's a lot more going on inside an amplifier, aside from just transistors and capacitors. You got other things like diodes. You have transformers. What else? You have inductors. There's a couple other things. You got optical isolators. There's a whole lot of other things that are inside of a circuit that comprises an amplifier. But a lot of that is I'm not going to say it's not important, but the most critical and what we're going to be talking about today is the transistors and the capacitors. Those are critical. All right, real quick, we're going to run through this kind of fast, so just kind of stay with me. In the modern amplifiers that you have today, these are Class D amplifiers. They utilize MOSFETs and IGBTs. So let's just start with the transistors. Right? So you got the transistors. You got a IGBT. These are the most common used in Class D amplifiers, right? The IGBT, I'm going to write it vertically, and that stands for isolated gate bipolar transistor. So isolated gate bipolar transistor. And for my technician friends and family out there, some of this information might be kind of helpful, because sometimes you work on these things and you just order it based on a part number, but you don't know exactly what it is. So that's the first type of transistor that's typically used in these digital Class D amplifiers. Then the other one is the subset of that. You could also use a MOSFET, and writing that vertically, that stands for metal. Well, yes, you like that. Metal oxide. Hold on 1 second there. I thought I heard somebody come in. Okay, semiconductor. Field. Effect. Transistor. Again, so these are both transistors, right? And they're basically switches. This is a switch, the IGBT. is a switch and the MOSFET is a switch. So both of these are switches. They switch real fast. Typically, the IGBT, it handles more current and more voltage. So that's why you'll see these used a lot of times in these Class D amplifiers, and depending on the actual circuitry, they're preferred over the MOSFET. The MOSFET just switches faster. It's over 200 kilohertz, I think it is, as far as the switching speed. So this is faster. The MOSFET is faster than the IGBT. So enough of this technical stuff, man, because I know that stuff kind of get boring. But anyway, in the actual Class D amplifier, you have what's called IGBTs and you have MOSFETs, all right? We're just going to do this high level. You got IGBTs, you got MOSFETs. Both of these are transistors, right? I'm not going to spell it out. So both of those are transistors, right? Transistors are important in an amplifier because that's what's used in the power supply to create the actual power that the output stage uses. The transistors are also in the output stage. The output stage is what plays the speaker. So if you got these 21s or 18-inch speakers and you're driving them, it's the transistors that are causing those speakers to go in and out. They're causing the speakers to move. So that's what a transistor is. So we covered that. And these are the two main types that are used in these Class D amplifiers, IGBT and MOSFETs. So let's move on. The next thing is capacitors, right? A capacitor, you could think of a capacitor, I guess, like a battery. It basically holds a charge. So we'll just use cap for short. So a capacitor holds a charge. Obviously, if you're thinking about holding a charge, you're basically storing energy to do work. So when the amplifier is playing, it takes the voltage coming in. So this is like a power cord right here. This is connected to this amp right here. So this is the power cord. It takes the voltage coming in from the source, whether it's a generator or a building. It pulls that voltage coming in, and it uses it in the power supply. We're not going to get into the switching and the pulse width modulation and all of that, but it's going to use that voltage source inside the power supply of the amplifier to create whatever it needs to provide the power to the output stage, which is what plays the speakers. All right. So far it's real simple. You got a transistor and you got a capacitor. You need those two things in the actual amplifier to create the power that's needed to play the speakers. So, it gets a little complicated, but I'm not trying to make it complicated. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So anyway, now let's go on to what makes the amplifiers different. All right, we got right here, we got two sheets. These are both MOSFETs, right? So you got a MOSFET right here, right? And you also have another MOSFET right here. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm just trying to give you an example of the difference between these transistors and why certain amplifiers play better, play stronger, or play different than another. So these are both MOSFETs. MOSFETs are typically always N-channel, right? N-channel MOSFETs are basically always used. To my technician friends out there, you never see a P-channel MOSFET being used because P-channel MOSFETs are inferior. So it's always an N-channel. All right. So this is the model number or the actual part number of this particular MOSFET, right? These are the specs. If you look right here, you can see it handles 500 volts and 25 amps. These are the most critical points. There's also a lot of things involved in the tech sheet, but we're not going to get into all of that stuff. But these are the most critical points. 500 volts, 25 amps, right? It's an N-channel MOSFET. Now, this is another MOSFET. And it's also another N-channel MOSFET. The difference between this MOSFET is this MOSFET handles 500 volts, but look at the amplifier. I mean, not the amplifier, the current difference. This one handles 45 amps. So this MOSFET handles way more amperage than this one. This one handles 25 amps. This one handles 45 amps. Both of these MOSFETs can be used in the same circuit or similar circuit of an amplifier, right? But one amplifier is the same Class D. It's using these MOSFETs with the 45 amp current handling capability part versus the other amplifier that's using these MOSFETs, right, with the 25 amp current handling capability part. So right there, you have two parts that could basically do the same job, but one part is better than the other one. So that now helps you understand a little bit as far as why some of the amplifiers play better than the other one. All right, so let's just move on from the MOSFET. These are the MOSFETs, right? We're going to move on from the MOSFETs, and we're going to go to the IGBT, right? I don't have two IGBT data sheets to show you because we're just doing a comparison. I'm just trying to show you something as far as the different components that are used inside the amplifier. These are IGBTs, very common in these lightweight amplifiers and these digital amplifiers. They use quite a few IGBTs. The benefit of an IGBT, which once again, going back to what I just told you, it's an isolated gate bipolar transistor. The benefit of an IGBT is they handle a lot more current. They can handle more current and voltage. All right. So as we just discussed with the MOSFETs, we have the two MOSFETs. The better MOSFET of the two of them was able to handle 45 amp. So this is the better MOSFET as far as current handling capability of these two MOSFETs, right? Look at the IGBT. The IGBT can also be used in a similar circuit instead of the MOSFETs, but look at what the IGBT can handle, right? The IGBT can handle 600 volts, but look at the amp rate. This thing can handle 68 amps, right? So that's why the IGBTs are typically employed in a lot of these lightweight Class D amplifiers because of its capabilities to handle high voltage and high current. And you need a lot of current and voltage from these Class D amplifiers to play the speakers and, you know, provide the power that you need, right? So those are two things that you got to consider when you're looking at an amplifier. Sometimes it looks similar from the outside. They're both one rack space. They have similar specs on paper. But for some weird reason, man, whenever you hook them up side by side and play them, and you start really dragging them down, like put them on 21s or playing them into 2 ohms, one amp is beating the hell out of the other amp. And you're like, damn, why in the world does this one play so much harder than the other one? That's one of the main reasons, right? You're using IGBTs in the circuit in different locations versus the MOSFETs. And even with the MOSFETs, you have different styles of MOSFETs. And one MOSFET may be better than the other one. The difference why some of these amplifiers won't use certain components is because they're much more expensive. It's like buying a lower grade part for maybe, you know, $5 versus the other part is going to cost you $18. So, you know, it's a financial decision as well. When you're making an amplifier, you could either make it high end and use the best parts, but it's going to make a difference in the overall cost of the consumer. So sometimes they use a lower cost part. All right. So that's the transistors. So like moving right along. Hold on. I actually got, let me see. I think I got the ones that we just discussed on the data sheet. I actually have them because, you know, I'm in here doing my Frankenstein stuff, man. I be chaining stuff up. All right. So this is the two MOSFETs that we were just talking about. All right. That's the part number for this one. I could actually put it on here real quick. Let me show you. Just bear with me. I'm going to actually let you see the part number on the part itself. All right, 1 second. Put this under here. So see under the microscope, you can actually see the part is FDH45N50F, right? And that's the one that I was just talking about, FDH45N50F. Not to give any trade secrets away, but this transistor is what's used in PowerSoft amplifiers in the output stage. All right, that's the only little secret piece of information I'm giving away in this video. I ain't trying to tell everybody everything, but that's the MOSFET that's used in the output stage, okay? So that's one, and put it back in the right bin, bam. This is the other one that we discussed. Put this under here. So it's the IXFR44N50, as you can see on the microscope right here. And that's the one that, you know, it doesn't handle as much current. It's not as great as the other one, I would say. So those are the difference between the two. And if you notice my bin, I have a bigger bin for this one and a smaller bin for that one. What does that tell you? This one costs way more money than these. So I could buy a whole bunch of these, but with these I buy some, but you know, I don't really spend like that because they just cost a whole lot more. All right, so that's what's going on with transistors and why one amplifier may sound a lot different or be able to perform a lot better. That also impacts the amplifier's reliability and its longevity. So just keep that in mind. Some amplifiers that are made, if you look at them funny, you had a bad day at work and you come home and you give them a dirty look, the amplifier just blow. You know what I'm saying? It just gets mad at you for looking at it funny and just decides to quit. So you got to take that into consideration when you're getting an amplifier. What kind of parts are being used. I know you won't know that, but you got to go off of, sometimes you just got to go off of historical data. Like somebody's used it and they said, boy, I assumed to turn on the amplifier blew, or I used it for 3 weeks and it went out on me, you know, stuff like that. Because I do a lot of repairs, as you already know, so I kind of see what's really going on. So if I put my name on this here, there's got to be a reason. All right, let's move on to the next part. The last one is capacitors, right? You got a bunch of different types of capacitors. Capacitors are used, like I said earlier, to hold, you know, a charge, and they basically provide the power to do work, and the work is being, you know, performed by the transistors. So if the transistors don't have sufficient amount of voltage and current, they can't work. All right, I'm going to show you two different types of transistors. I got some transistors here. I mean, not transistors, sorry, capacitors. My brain's getting crossed up. All right, so we got two capacitors. There's three right here, but I'll save this one for later, right? These are all good capacitors. I just call them caps. From now on, we'll just call them caps instead of using that long, drawn-out word. This capacitor or cap is 200 volts, 330 microfarad. For the most part, you'll see microfarad caps in any kind of power supply or, you know, output stage. You know, I mean, it's the word farad comes from a guy named Michael Faraday. So his last name was Faraday. So they use farad to, you know, quantify the unit of measure for a capacitor. All right, just a little, I guess a little side note, a little piece of information. But this capacitor is a good cap, right? But if you notice, if you look at it, it gives you the actual parameters: 200 volts, 330 microfarad. You spin it around, there's nothing else on there. It's not a bad cap, it's a good capacitor. But look at this capacitor. This capacitor is not the same value. I'm just showing you something different as far as the writing on it. This is a 220 microfarad. The UF, U stands for micro, F is farad. 220 microfarad, 250 volt capacitor. The difference in this one is, if you look at it, you see what it says below the actual spec? It says for audio. These capacitors tend to have different electrolytic content, different separating material inside of it that makes them a lot more quiet. They don't induce hum. Their ripple is pretty much non-existent in some cases. In other words, what I'm trying to say is this capacitor is a much better capacitor because it's designed to be used in amplifiers and audio circuitry, right? So these two capacitors, you could order the caps or use the caps and it'll still work, right? I'm not saying that these are the same values because they're not, but I'm just using this as an example. Each cap will still work in the circuit, right? But once again, one amplifier, the one that's using the one that says for audio, it just sounds better. It plays cleaner and it lasts a lot longer for some reason. That's what the thing, you know, that's the thing that a lot of people say, well, I don't understand. It's just something different about this amplifier. It just sounds better or it plays better. Don't mind my dirty fingers, man. I've been scratching them up on these electronic parts, and then when it rips, they just leave all kind of lines on my fingers. So anyway, I'm not dirty and I'm gonna keep my hand them clean. All right, but anyway, moving right along, right? So the amplifier, you're like, man, this amplifier may sound a lot better, it plays cleaner or whatever, and it plays heavier, but you don't know why. That's the reason. One of the reasons is the capacitors. Some amplifier manufacturers, they use better capacitors in there, right? And I'm not saying that it has to come from the manufacturer that way, because if you do this kind of work and you know what you're doing, you could change the capacitors, you could change the transistors, and make boards that are different to make them sound better and perform better and have more longevity. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's the difference in amplifiers and what makes certain amplifiers play different and operate different and just, you know, have better performance, right? So that is that. I like to keep these things short. Hopefully you got a little bit of good information out of it. Hopefully my technician friends, y'all got some good stuff out of this too. One more thing, I guess, before I go. I'm just trying to like review the things that I keep getting asked, and I want to clarify everything. Current is what goes through your wire to your speaker, right? So remember we had that last video, not the last one, the first video, I believe it was, one or two, I forgot. But anyway, we spoke about current and voltage, right? Current is what goes through your speaker. Goes through your wire. So when you have an amplifier playing or whatever, a lot of times somebody will say, boy, the voltage not go through the wire, whatever, whatever. Voltage does not go through wire, right? Current does. If you think about it like this, an easy way to remember, if you get hit with a taser, right? A person could zap you with a taser, or a police, or a girl that got pissed off with you because she found another girl's number in her phone and she decided to take her tears away and buy her for Christmas to protect herself and shock the hell out of you. That taser is not going to kill you. You see what I'm saying? It's going to shock the hell out of you. Yeah, it's going to make you jump and do the electric slide, but it ain't going to kill you. That's because voltage is not typically what kills you. You could have 16,000 volts from a taser hit you and not die. But you could have 1 ampere, if you want to call it that, of current go through your body and it'll kill you. Once again, I'm going to say that again. You could have 16,000 volts hit you from a taser and not die. But if you have 1 amp go through your body, that can kill you. Amperage is what goes through the wire. Current flows through the wire. So, you know, for the people that keep saying, you know, the voltage is going through the wire, voltage does not go through wire. Voltage is a kick. That's what pushes the actual current through the wire, right? So I just wanted to kind of spell that out because I got hit with that question quite a bit as well. So just wanted to clarify that, man. My whole objective is to give back to the sound community and help people out, do as much as I can while I'm here. You know what I mean? I think that's our purpose in life. We got to be on this earth for a reason. So any information that I have, any information I could pass along, man, I gladly and freely do it. Sometimes I get criticism from people. Boy, you don't need to tell them people, yeah, them sitting here, brother. Make them go find out for themselves. And you know what I'm saying? You'll be surprised at the stuff that I hear, man. So, but you know, like I said, I don't have any problem doing it. I love doing it. I love sharing with the sound community. I like to uplift and stay positive. I don't like that negativity. You see what I'm saying? So when I come on here, I try to do as much as I can to, you know, give you any little bit of information that I got. I'm not saying that I'm the smartest person or I know everything. I just try to do what I can to help out as much as I possibly can. You see what I'm saying? So hopefully if this information helped you, feel free to pass it along, man. And, you know what I mean? It's a Sunday. So, but that's why I say big up God each and every time. You know what I mean? You can't do nothing without him. So you got to make sure you don't leave him out, even with this quarantine thing. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, just big up on yourself, and I'll catch y'all the next time around when I get any more questions, and I try to figure out a way to answer it as best as possible. I'll do another video. All right. So let me move these out of the way. So this stuff is here as a screenshot, so to speak. So if anybody wants to go back and look at it, it's there. All right. Wasi over and out. Big up yourself. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, man. Bless up.